Hello, you guys. Welcome back to the Blacksmith Forge. I'm Chris. Um, I wanted to make a quick video not too long ago, uh, but well, I guess it's longer than what I thought not too long ago would be. But I wanted some time to think about it and kind of uh, process some things before got in front of you guys and shared my experience. Um, There's nothing major, but uh, just an experience I would like to kind of share with you guys. Um, as we share the gospel, or at least try to address certain issues, um, we'll hit brick walls. And by brick walls, I mean, people who have a strong stance on their view to the point where it's pretty much inarguable to them not even to plant the seed. You know, um, the Lord gives us an analogy of of the farmer who spreads spreads seeds, and some will find good soil, some will be eaten by the birds, and some will be tossed to the fertile ground. Um, I'm not exactly sure which one applies here, so to anyone who comes about this video and is able to, clarify for me, uh, I'll be open to, suggestion, critique, criticism of that. But and among other things, other things as well. So I'm open to critique and criticism. Um, uh, but I'd like to give a disclaimer before I get into that. Um, as I was watching some other videos within the past couple of weeks, it occurred to me to just give like a disclaimer of what I call cryptonemia. Not I call it, but um, there's a word called cryptonemia, which in short, or in layman's terms, I should say, is when someone gets a view of something or experiences something that is, or learns of something, I should say, of an idea or a thought from someone else. They forget it, and then it reimagines. It comes up to their own into their own mind without the source material, leading the person to believe that they uh, were the originators of that. And in some cases, I believe I've practiced that unintentionally. It's always unintentional. If it's honest, it's always unintentional. Um, and so I think there have been cases on my behalf in which I forgot the source material, and I'll look up you know different videos of people who practice apologetics, and I was like, oh, that's a great metaphor. And so I found two metaphors that that um or rather it's come to mind, two metaphors that's come to mind that I've kind of built a foundation of meditation on. And I think I would be, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for exactly right now, but if I would feel like I would be dishonest, what I'm saying, if I did not, share the source thoughts of some of the metaphors that I've used in past videos. So in the first metaphor that that came to mind, it would be a metaphor of um, the courtroom. I mean, yes, there is uh, a there's reference in scripture about, when in terms of the white throne of judgment. But Ray Comfort, he's a pretty popular YouTube, well, not just YouTube, but really a pretty popular uh, believer and disciple. And he gives a great metaphor for, um, he elaborates on, you know, uh, the whole process of due judgment, in the sense of like even referring to, death as the patrolman, or the what's it called? Um, well, pretty much like I call it a bounty hunter, but it was more like a patrolman to, carry you back, to guide you to the courtroom, the guide to the courtroom. I can't remember the precise wording he used at the time, but the general metaphor that he expounded upon, that came to mind when I was watching one of his videos, and I was like, oh, that's where I got that from. So I want to give a shout out to him on that. um, in a sense, to say thank you for, giving such a great metaphor. And, you know, also is to say, not trying to take credit for anything, uh, but it was a great inspiration, to, build some things off of, and a good metaphor to build a foundational argument on, or thought process on. The second one would be, I don't know if I've used this in previous videos, but I can't remember the pastor's last name, but it was a pastor who's, very, I would say he's pretty well known in the apologetics field. I can't remember his last name though, so I'm just going to go with Pastor Kurt. And he made I remember him making a point, um, describing an analogy, um, when he was questioned, well, who created God? And he made an analogy of God being pretty much outside of, he made an analogy of surrounding computers, and God being the programmer, creator of the computer, and all the things that are inside of it. We are inside of it. And so his um, I hope I'm not butchering his stance, but I'm not trying to butcher his stance or anything. But actually, it gave me a good foundation to process certain things, and process why certain things are the way that they are, and and our limitations within it. And I think that computer analogy was well suited, uh, and gives it make to me, uh, even though I don't even though I'm not a programmer of any sorts, um, or well knowledgeable about computers. I know just, basic stuff, but it makes sense. It makes so much sense, in fact, that I started building a lot of my thought processes and meditations on that, you know, and so if I can remember his last name, I'll probably have to look it up and probably put it in the description or something like that. But I want to thank him for that foundation as well. Um, but with that said, um, I as I was, like one of my favorite pastimes is watching apologists go to work, and and one of the ones I really like to watch is Red Pen Logic. Um, I'm terrible with remembering names, so perhaps I'll put it in a description at the bottom of this video as well, um, or a comment or something. You know, um, But he but as I was watching a video, um, I read a comment, and it seems I'm not sure how to convey this point, but um, I guess the best way to convey this point is to read the comment. So I read a comment, and it says, "Okay, but God created Satan, and if He created him with the knowledge that he would rebel and rule the earth, then who is responsible?" And that's the comment that I decided to, respond to. I asked if he wanted to know my viewpoint on it. He said, "Sure, okay." And so I did give a response to this. And let me see if I can find said response. And I'll read it verbatim. So I'm not. So it can be under. So you guys can better understand what my viewpoints are and any errors that I've made in responding in my response. Because as we speak to people, we can only do the best we can with what we know. Um, and it's better to, I think it's better to come with the openness of heart and an honest heart, in a sense, in sharing the gospel rather than coming with the perfect words, because we're not going to have the perfect words. And even if the perfect words are given, it's not guaranteed by any means that they'll be accepted. So don't focus on when you go to share the gospel, don't focus so much on turning that one person, it's the equivalent of trying to take like spreading seeds on concrete or asphalt and then trying to take a pickaxe and then try to, you know, pick through um pick through that hard surface in order to get that, make sure you get that see through. And it's typically not what uh I assume that it's typically not what a wise farmer would do. A wise farmer would find fertile land and till the ground, plant the seeds, and then start to care for it. You know, and oftentimes that looks like a person showing genuine interest to learn more, want to learn more, and being receptive to the words, even if they may disagree or feel uncomfortable about it. Their willingness to kind of seek out, um, their willingness to seek out further detail and information um, would be a good indicator, in my opinion, of someone who is well receptive to what's being shared. So my response was, "Hello, sir. If you honestly would like an answer, I'd be willing to share my thoughts, perspective, slash perspective. If not, that's cool too." So I just kind of left it in his hands. He said, "Please, I would love your opinion as I am really looking for answers." Now, I question that, but there's a lot that is missing through text. Um, there's a lot of communication that you will not receive. There's not a lot. There's a lot of body. There's no body language to read. There's no tone to read. All you have is words on the screen like a book, and word choice is pretty much the only thing you have to go off of. But someone told me, I don't know, something about the word choice a little bit to me. It's like, don't expect much, don't expect, hmm, okay, kind of display. But, I came with him with respect and he responded in such a way that he opened the door for what's it called? A well, we both kind of opened the door to make a kind of mutual understanding of I'm just sharing something that I thought. And I think that's a good place to start, you know. Um, so I'll go on and see if I can find my response. I know that it took me quite a bit to write this response because I wrote it and had to abandon the computer, and I came back, it was gone, uh, uh, due to refreshing stuff. And all I know, something happened, and I had to refresh the screen. So so I pretty much wrote it and had to copy paste it on here. But without further ado, and um, so I'll say I'll do my best just to kind of read completely through it, and then I'll probably go back and expand upon things. To answer the question, and I pretty much quoted him. I'm sorry, I pretty much quote him to repeat back what I'm responding to because he had another conversation going on with a lot of people. So I wanted to, or at least one other person, but it was kind of long. So I wanted to respond to a specific statement and just give my opinion on it. To answer the question, okay, but God created Satan, and if He created him with the knowledge uh, that he would rebel and rule the earth, then who is responsible? This is just my viewpoint on it, as I've meditated on this question before. Um, but my short answer to this is that life is a test of loyalty and love, and Satan exists to provide an alternative option to make free will complete. I'll try to explain what I mean. Consider this question. What would you rather have? An AI robot woman who was programmed to love you, parentheses, what we could have been, in parentheses, or would you rather have a woman who freely chooses to love you? Most would lean toward the actual woman because it means so much more to us that we are chosen rather than being demanded to be loved. To be selected makes us feel good, makes us feel valued. But in order for a selection to be made, one needs to be able to choose freely, parentheses, free will, and some alternative option to choose from, God or Satan. Satan chose to prioritize himself over God and offers the same alternative, which are temptations, to people to rebel against God. So his existence from there on serves as a symbol of a clear choice that can be made, because one can hardly make a choice that they don't know they have available to them. So now that we have all the things, and again, parentheses, again, in my limited view, close parentheses, that we need to be able to choose free will. We need to be able to choose free will and clear choices. I think I just kind of messed that up. So I'm going to go ahead and leave out the parentheses. I'm going to go back to the beginning of that sentence. So now that we have all the things we need, all the things that we need to be able to choose free will and clear choices, we are now able to be tested. But God grants us more than the simple baseline by spelling out the results, of our choice. And this is where we insert the gospel message. Now that we are armed with the ability to choose, choices, and insight into the consequences, we now also become responsible for the choices we make. Satan doesn't have the power to outright kill us, but he can tempt us in many ways. In a simple way of looking at it, it is kind of like certain shows in which a boyfriend or girlfriend runs a hidden camera test on their significant other. I hope that the structure of this response isn't too mixed and confusing. So, let's see. How do I kind of break down what I mean by all of that? I know it's kind of like, I know it's it may be lacking in structure to do it that way, but I just wanted to kind of share with you at least the baseline of my response and kind of go back over it. In the first paragraph, I just kind of give my viewpoint that in my personal opinion, life is a test of loyalty and love. And for it to be a test, there had to be choices. And it's a test of loyalty and love. So the test is, or I guess loyalty through test of love through loyalty, I should say. That's how I kind of look at the meaning of this life. God has given us the capacity. God has to, but in order for this to be a earnest test, God has to give us the capacity to make a choice. I mean, well, when it comes to choices, when it comes to people being tested, it's typically about the choice. Some tests are about performance, but this one about choice, maybe a little bit performance. But that's what I mean within that first paragraph. But I'll go deeper into that and hit up in the next. Go up to the next paragraph. Go down to the next paragraph. As I'm talking about the AI woman and the real woman, I think that paragraph kind of makes it clear, because we all want to have the genuine feeling of being loved, and that genuine feeling comes from a clear-cut choice being made. I know that things are kind of getting kind of out of hand these days with the growing of AI, and especially when it comes to men kind of going to these. Well, I'm not going to go too deep into the subject matter, but there are times when men prefer, we'll just call it dolls, and I'm going to leave it at that. And but there's a growing number of people gravitating towards AI, sadly, and in attempts of finding companionship. That's what I mean. And it's a substitute for something that they can't. They don't feel like they can access or gain, which is someone actively choosing them. But if we all had that choice to have someone who would choose to want us, I mean, it goes for, the other side too. I be you guy or girl, if you if you had the option, you would likely choose somebody who you would likely choose to be loved by somebody rather than being with something that's been programmed to love you. Um, because when something's programmed to do it, yes, they can give you they could give you everything you want, in a sense. You don't feel like you've earned it. You don't feel like it's appreciated. There are certain things that are just missing out of that. And it really feels kind of empty to have something that agrees with you all the time. Um, you know, willing to do whatever you say when you say. It's kind of like, I mean, maybe a bad analogy, but a semi-relatable one. It's the whole premise of uh an old movie called Coming to America, where Eddie Murphy plays a king of an African country, and he leaves that African country to find, well, I guess to search for a bride, I think. And he does so because, the women of his country are trained to respond to him in his every command, and it doesn't and they behave more like robots or slaves or something like that than uh sentient people. That's the best way I can explain it. There the woman the women that were available to him in his country weren't themselves. They were just kind of almost like tools, you know. So it's kind of hard to feel like you're being to give love to someone who can't really give love back in that kind of sense, because there's that loss of free will there. So anyway, I think that's kind of, summarizes that particular point. So the next paragraph goes on to describe the choice of free will. Um, and that I personally believe that, that we are under the care of an all-knowing, all-seeing God. And nothing happens without his knowledge of what's going to happen immediately and further on down the line. Um, so is at least how I see things after, the fall of Satan, was that, and along with Satan, a third of his angels, a third of, have his angels follow him. They had that choice to make. Um, God, and after that, God created the earth, um, shaped the earth, and he created us. And within that, in his um, desire to have a creature that had that was willing to give love, because our God is not just a God of justice, or just he's not just a God of mercy and grace. He's God of love, and our God wears many hats, takes many forms, and is capable of many things, and anything we can conceive, um, and beyond. Um, but I think the original plan for, I think it all serves as I think this life serves as a test. And in order to have a test of loyalty, you have to make a choice. And so Satan's existence is, at least in our realm, is to provide that choice, to let it be known that there are options other than serving God. And I think that this enhances, you know, um, what it means to, I think it really gives solid ground to what it means to love God. Because the choices in this life is, at least in biblical terms, is we can choose God or we can choose anything else. And in that, you know, we choose pretty much either God or ourselves. Just like Satan did. He had a choice of staying up. He had a choice of, you know, staying in heaven or, rebelling. Of not staying, but, remaining loyal to God or rebelling. And he chose to rebel. He chose himself. And, in the incidents, in the event of, Eden, he encouraged Adam and Eve to choose themselves, which is really what kind of opened the door for a lot of what's going on, almost everything that's going on or going wrong today within this broken world. So, but his existence, the things that he does, is he offers us choices. He offers us opportunities to walk away from God. He presents us with options, and well, I think I go on into to explain that a little bit in the pretty much the last paragraph. Let me see if I can quickly spot anything that's comes a clear note. Okay, so we have the ability to choose. We have, which is the free will, and we have choices to make. And not only that, God is gracious enough to give us the consequences of the choices that we make. He could just say, hey, do what you want, and then let us live blindly to the choices that we're going to make. And then, blindside us with that punishment, but he doesn't. He gives us, his word. He gives us the Bible. He gave us Jesus. Jesus came, with fellowship with us, explained some of the things that were unclear to us, gave us, most importantly, gave us the option, to choose him, to love him, and showed us the way to do that. Gave us the option to be able to ascend to heaven with him, provided we make him Lord over our lives. But that option had to be there. And in order for this whole thing to be a complete test, of free choices and will, and a test of loyalty and love. And so with the to kind of back up a little bit, this test has choices. We have the capacity to choose, which is that free will. We have choices, clear-cut choices that we can make. Either, we go with what God says, or we do our own thing. And oftentimes Satan is encouraging us to do our own thing. And then we have the consequences. So with those three things in mind, especially with the consequences being spelled out for us, to answer the question of whether God, or rather, who is responsible, to answer the question, okay, but God created Satan, and if he created him with the knowledge that he would rebel and rule the earth, which, I mean, Satan rules the earth because God allows it, then who is responsible? We are responsible for the choices that we make. Satan gives us options. There are certain things in this world that are broken, without our hands on it. But the majority of things that go down in this world, they happen because of man. They happen because we have the capacity to choose, and we choose ourselves. Thankfully, the person who responded to this, who kind of opened the door for this conversation, or maybe or rather, person who opened the door for this response, he could have just, spewed profanity, said, you ain't this, you ain't that, stupid, you're this, you're that. I don't want to hear it. He had that option, but he opened, but he chose to, allow for a civil conversation, or at least open the door, at least, allow me to believe, that civil conversation can be had. And that's a choice, do you sigh and woosah when someone cuts you off for traffic, or do you look their way and you try to speed up and you do things to spite them, or you yell at them, even though you know they can't hear you, you're honking your horn. All that's a choice. Do you wait patiently in line, or do you cut in front of people? Choice, you know. I mean, there are plenty of, other choices that you can make, or, analogies that can be made, but I think you have my point. You know, do you have to rob somebody? Choice. Where do you want to work? In order to, you know, in order to gain money or whatnot. That's a choice. You want to be respectful to your parents, or do you want to rebel? Choice. Some of them, but some of those choices, like oftentimes when, Satan has his hand on those choices, there's the glamour of an immediate reward, but then the long-term effects or um, or terrible and awful, you know. But I think I kind of diverge off the topic. Okay, so I won't spoil things. I guess I'll go ahead and spoil things for you, in the sense that after he gave his response, I did not respond back, because I realized I was just kind of, to go back to that metaphor of the farmer. I realized it was kind of just hardened ground, and perhaps I could have handle the situation better by leaving a response of grace or whatnot. But I believe that I did the best I did the best choice that I thought I could make, because I don't think I could have worded it well enough. At least a response in grace. So I just kind of let it be. But he did respond to me, and he kind of turned out to have the same kind of issue, is that he wrote a long response and it got deleted. Therefore, he kind of shortened it up a bit, which is the same thing that happened to me. So I feel him on that. But he writes this in response to me. Wow, I wrote out a big, long reply, but it got deleted. Bottom line, and what I find faulty in your premise, is that there is no free will. Parentheses, I could elaborate further if you wish, and it's a fallacy, close parentheses. And that God, being all-knowing, is responsible for evil also. And if you look at your life and are honest, I can assure that more bad things have happened than good. The woman argument is valid because, yes, we would want someone to choose us, but I can prove that God has chosen ultimately. In the garden, they did not have a choice. And Satan did not deceive first, but God did. He told them they would die and put the temptation in front of them. Satan did not create the tree, nor did he lie. Everything he stated was actually factual and came to fruition. Lastly, there is no factual evidence that the Bible is a legitimate source of instruction or teaching, but because you believe in it, I will make my argument from the text. Now, that ends his response. One of the reasons why I did not respond to this, because I've seen this kind of thought process before on multiple occasions. And I think why I opened the video the way I opened it, at least at that time, which came kind of to the decision that I made of not responding beyond that point, is because, I was really against him, against this person, using someone else's argument as their own. And so the reason why I opened up with the disclaimer that I did, was that I recently learned that the that the foundations of a lot of things I believe, the things that I believe were given to me, you know, thankfully because of the Holy Spirit, the foundations of which I can, build an understanding and grow a relationship with Christ, is because of the people who I've watched and who have kind of helped form a foundation of building an understanding, some of the passages, at least understanding perspective and context and things. So although I'm not I'm not I'm not a pastor of any kind, in a sense of like certified to do to declare anything. I do watch I do watch the different pastors act in apologetics. I do attend church, the Bible believing church, but I say all that to say that at that time, one of the reasons why I didn't respond, and this was over 3 weeks ago, was because I felt he wasn't being himself, and I felt that it was more so channeling another YouTuber or something like that. I have a YouTuber in mind who he's likely channeling, which gave me the reason why I did another reason. Well, the particular YouTuber, and then the idea of, he didn't quite think this through. Um, and consider what I'm saying, which is those are the reasons why I didn't respond, you know. Um, but it's not to say that there aren't responses that can be made to made to these particular statements. Um, well, I think his belief is that because God is always in control, um, and I think because he believes that God's always in control, right? Um, Therefore, he is responsible for the evil that's in this world, and in the idea of, well, if he's responsible and he's doing bad things, if he's allowing bad things and he's doing bad things, and then it's all his fault. Responsibility equals fault in this kind of thought process. And so, which is why I brought up the whole, idea of free will. Not the idea, but that's why I mentioned free will, because our free will makes it our capacity to choose makes it our fault. We choose sin, you know. We choose to do things. We can show love to each other. We can uh feed the hungry, we can clothe the naked, and we can, you know, house the homeless. We can choose to do all these acts of love, and then we can also choose to put a camera somewhere and then make it about ourselves. Or we can put some sort of ad in the newspaper to make it put our name out there, make it about us. Make sure people know that we're this loving, you know what I mean? And so, but more of the point, but back to the point, I'm trying to read a little bit to kind of get a refresher of what his response was to this, um, but in general, he's saying that, our hands are off. You know what I mean? And it's not our fault as people that things are this bad. Yeah, it is. And uh, the reason why I say that is, you know, even though he's all knowing God and he's all, he knows what we will do. He knows what we won't do. This whole test is not a, well, God, let me see. It's not, God saying, I don't know how these people are going to act when they get into heaven. That's not the case, because he knows. But he wanted a creation that had the capacity to love. But being a just and fair God, uh, he's not going to judge us on Judgment Day based off of what we could do. I mean, it's just my opinion, but instead, when we're in front of the white throne of judgment, he won't say, well, because you could have done such and such, you will receive this punishment. This life is for us to see on Judgment Day. This life is for us to know the choices that we would make. So when we it's kind of like if you were to go to be in front of a judge, right? If you were taken to court, you're dragged out of your house, taken to court, you don't even know why. And you go before a judge. Imagine that you were saying that you were, standing before a judge, and you were charged with and the judge said something to the effect of, well, I brought you here today because, you know, you have functioning arms and legs, and uh, you have a mind that's capable of, you know, robbing a bank. And based on your ability to think out and plan out things, I think that you probably robbed several banks before getting caught. Therefore, I'm going to sentence you to life imprisonment for, uh, or rather, not life imprisonment, but X number of years, which equals life imprisonment. Let's say 126 years, because I believe you have made off. You would, before you were caught, you would have made off with about $36 million. Just hypothetical. I don't know the laws of, such and such, of whatever state you're in. But imagine you were brought to the judge and the judge told you that. The common person's likely response would be, but I didn't do that. I know you're saying I could, but I didn't. And the judge goes, we're going to be on the safe side. You would likely not consider that fair. Because although you had the option, you had the capacity, you didn't choose that. Well, I think this is what's the case here. Is that when we get to the right throne of judgment, before the right throne of judgment, he's told us what the wages of sin are. We've committed that sin, and we'll be judged well, we could be judged based on that, if not for Jesus. If not for Jesus, if we don't, seek his redemption program, like I mentioned before, his redemption program, and or rather salvation program, then we will have to pay for that from a God who's seen all that we done. We are his creatures on his earth, and this will be determined who will enter his eternal home. And it is his right to choose who enters his home. And this life is for us this life is for us to see that. To see that this is what he said, this is what we did, and this is what will happen after that. And he only had two places for our soul, two resting places for our soul. And he let us know there's heaven and there's hell. So, with like I said before, armed with that full knowledge, that's on us. That's not on the Lord. So I think that kind of covers a response to much of what he said. He does mention Eden, and he does mention, the fall of man. He did, but I think the context is so twisted, at least in my opinion. The context is so twisted that I didn't really bother to answer all of that, because I believe God has an all-powerful being has no reason to lie to you. Most people within power, at least from what I understand, the more powerful someone is, the less likely they are to lie, because they don't need to lie to exert their authority. And if a creator creates a creation, unless he has something devious, in mind to try to kind of give a creature free will, like to punish a creature with free will, I don't know. I don't even know how to convey that point because my mind isn't capable of computing that yet. But um, that would take a level of deviousness. But then again, you know, like if you view dictators that we've experienced, that humanity has experienced and recorded, they lie to get to the power. But once they have that power, they don't bother lying too much. It's, oh, I don't like you. Off, be gone, exile. I don't like you. Off with your head. I, kings, you know, pharaohs and stuff, people who are considered kings and lords and gods, they don't bother lying. They don't bother lying when they have so much power. So to me, the idea of God lying, there would be no reason for it because if he wanted to do something, he'd do it. It's not a thing we can do to stop it, right? So, but that's why I think it was kind of silly for it to be said that God would create Satan and for Satan to be the one telling the truth and God be lying. So if you have the capacity to force something to do something that you against its will, if you had that capacity, why would you bother lying to them about it? You would just do it. We've seen that as creatures made in the image of God, we see that we do that. There are people who do that, who, practice that use of power or abuse, I should say, abuse of power, you know. Um, but, like I mentioned before, they lie to get it though. They lie to get to have that capacity. But God always had that capacity. Therefore, there was no need to lie. But it does fit Satan, though, because this world, although he rules it, is on loan. This world it will eventually be repoed from him. And therefore, he is not all powerful. Therefore, there is incentive to lie. He cannot do everything he wants to do, but he can roam freely and convince other people to do whatever it is that they desire or that he desires them to do. And it's up for us to make the choice. So I think I'll end this recording right there. Because I think I've answered the basic question of that the guy asked, who's responsible, and again with choice and free will, and being graciously given the response, the possible outcomes of many of our actions and sin, not only within this world but within the realms of eternal life, we become responsible. So I think I'll call that it. I don't know the title that this video will be because to post a question as it is would be kind of long. But I'll try to put this out there as soon as possible. And next time, I'll go in. I'll take a bit of a different topic on. Well, thank you for giving me your time. Hope I didn't run too long. I likely have. But if you have to break it up, I totally understand. Uh, I totally understand. I wish I could condense these things down to um 10 to 20-minute videos, but I don't know. I mean, I think, thanks to shorts and TikToks and things of that nature, um and other, short form video things, our attention span is being murdered. Uh and I raise my hand because I watch a lot of that kind of stuff too. My attention span is not very strong. So, mm, but so I totally understand, if you like too long didn't read. You got to break it up every 20 minutes or whatnot. That's cool. Either way, I thank you for your time. All right. Be blessed.